right, let's do this thing. Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Hope all of you are enjoying your 4th of July weekends. And coming up here on the show, some Niners trade targets. And we're going to take a look at players who are contract extension candidates with other teams. And if they don't get deals done with the respective squads, could the Niners trade for those players? A little bit of a different show, but one I'm excited to get to here on the 49ers Report. First, I want to take a look at our July rival sub battle. Which channel could pick up the most subscribers during this month? Since July 1, the Cowboys Report is in the lead, 61 subscribers picked up. We're in second place with 27 new subscribers. Welcome to the show, my real ones. Seahawks today in third place with 15 new subs. Here's the deal. We can overtake the Cowboys. We can distance ourselves from the Seahawks if you just hit that sub button right now. And at the end of the day, you're a winner because you get free Niners shows every single day from yours truly. We really appreciate your support as we're on the road to 135,000 subscribers. As for where the Niners sit currently on the cap, San Francisco sitting pretty, at least as of right now. $31.4 million in cap space per over the cap. 6th most in the National Football League. They're in a good spot now. Not in a great spot in the future. In 2025 currently, the Niners are $38.9 million over the cap. Cap space can be rolled over. So the Niners could just sit idly with this money here, roll it over to next year, and they could make that cap situation a lot better. There are also other ways to ease the financial situation and the financial burden in 2025. And these are just a couple of avenues in order to do that. You could pull off trades. You could cut players. You could pull off salary cap gymnastics. You could give contract extensions to some of your own players. You could give players guaranteed money, and that's a way to massage the cap as well. You could also use that cap space right now to make your team better, to try to chase that Super Bowl and get over the hump to get that 6th Lombardi trophy, which the Niners have not been able to win a Super Bowl since 1994. The Niners' positions of need. There are a couple of them, even though I still think San Francisco has arguably the best and most talented roster in the NFL. Center, right guard, right tackle. 3/5 of the offensive line. If you're a real one, you watch the show, you know that I've criticized the strategy behind the Niners' approach to the offensive line. They could get better there. 3/5 of it, a little bit questionable. Edge rusher depth and defensive tackle depth, other positions of need, in addition to safety, partially because of Talanoa Hufanga coming off that torn ACL, and tight end 2 behind George Kittle. We'll see if Logan Thomas can fill that role. So with that, we take a look at some of these contract extension candidates who might not land deals with their teams, and they might become trade targets for the Niners. We know that San Francisco has a revolving door at right tackle with Colton McKivitz holding it down on that right side or not being able to hold it down. So I want to take a look here at Bills right tackle Spencer Brown, and The Athletic had a snippet on Spencer Brown saying this: one of the few question marks heading into last year was whether the 2021 third-round pick could fulfill his promise after a rocky sophomore campaign. Brown answered with authority, playing every single one of Buffalo's 1,305 snaps. Pro Football Focus charted him for only 2 more pressures than Pro Bowl left tackle Deion Dawkins. Brown now enters the final year of his rookie contract. The Bills will have significant cap space next year after receiver Stephon Diggs' dead money clears. But they can save a lot by extending Brown in the next few months and not letting him get close enough to free agency to get curious about testing the open market. Or there could be a situation in which the Bills want to get some value back for a player they don't envision keeping, and they could trade him for either some player or draft capital. Brown in 2023, certainly rebounding from that aforementioned rocky season 2 years ago. Snaps at right tackle, 1,157. So the familiarity with right tackle, important for this conversation. He gave up 5 sacks, surrendered 5 hits, had 9 penalties. 40 pressures, not a great number, because when you flip the page, you look at Colton McKivitz here. He gave up 47 pressures of Brock Purdy last year on more than 1,000 snaps, 573 of those pass blocking snaps. McKivitz also gave up 9 sacks, so that's more than Brown, and then 4 hits. Player number 2 who I want to talk about here is a really good defensive tackle who simply might be on the outside looking in because of all of the money that the Lions have spent in keeping some of their own players on their roster. That's Lions defensive tackle Alim McNeill, who last year in 2023 was a really good player along the interior defensive line, had an overall Pro Football Focus grade of 88.5, run defense grade of 79.3, pass rush grade of 76.2, 5 sacks, 24 hurries, and 34 pressures. Really solid player who can make some good dough in a contract year. Here's what The Athletic had to say about McNeill. The Lions just dished out $444 million to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell, and Jared Goff this offseason. But there's another extension candidate worth watching. That would be McNeill, a fourth-year defensive tackle coming off his best year. He turned 24 in May, and his best football is ahead of him entering the final year of his rookie deal. He was a disruptive force against the run and as a pass rusher when healthy, and the signing of space-eating nose tackle DJ Reader should bring out the best in McNeill. McNeill will be due a big payday if it all comes together in year 4. How much he ultimately gets could determine what's available for other free agents like Taylor Decker and Carlton Davis, to name a few. Let me also name another contract extension candidate in the not-too-distant future for Detroit, and that's Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson is a really solid homegrown player who's probably going to have to be given an extension at some point in the foreseeable future. Now, the Niners certainly remade their defensive line this offseason, but the depth there is a little bit of a concern, and it's going to be a new-look defensive line after the additions of Malik Collins, who takes over for Eric Armstead. Javon Hargrave hopefully rebounds from somewhat of a lackluster 2023 campaign, and then Leonard Floyd steps in for Chase Young and Cleveland Ferrell. But the backup defensive tackle spot, the Niners signed Jordan Elliott, who was good against the run last year for Cleveland. But then how about the other depth pieces at defensive tackle? Kevin Givens is what he is. Kalia Davis hasn't been able to stay healthy. And you have T.Y. McGill. Alim McNeill, my goodness, you would just have an embarrassment of riches at that point. A more realistic deal than Alim McNeill is Colts tight end Mo Alley Cox, a really good athlete. And Logan Thomas has been a productive player. He's an athletic freak, but he's also been banged up over the last couple of years. Mo Alley Cox, 6'5", 267. He went to VCU, kind of a diamond in the rough prospect coming out of VCU as a former Hooper. 13 catches last year for 161 yards, 3 touchdowns along a 35. You've seen some glimpses of him displaying that athletic talent. He can block a little bit. He can climb the ladder, go up and get it. And if you're not sure about the tight end depth behind George Kittle, who is a first-team All-Pro, I don't know if it would cost all that much money to try to make a trade for Mo Alley Cox. Here's what The Athletic had to say about him. He's 30, entering the final year of a 3-year extension that he signed in 2022. The veteran tight end due $5.9 million in 2024, but the Colts could cut him before the season and free up that total in cap space. Indy signed Alley Cox as an undrafted free agent in 2017. He's become a mainstay in the tight end room over the years. However, the Colts still lack a true number 1 option at that position, with Jelani Woods returning to form, as well as Kylan Granson, Will Mallory, and Drew Ogletree all being in the mix. It's fair to wonder if Indy will lean toward a younger and cheaper player to assume Alley Cox's role in the offense. So for the Niners here, you could either pull off a trade or you could wait to see if he does get cut, and then you scoop him up following that. Let's now go to the defensive side of the football with Jaguar safety Andre Cisco. The Jags, another team that this offseason has handed out some money. And the Niners a little bit thin at that safety position. I don't think they're going to bring back Deshaun Gibson because he's been suspended 6 games for violating the league's PED policy. And I don't even think that the Niners were going to bring him back just because of the age, but because of the health concerns with Talanoa Hufanga, you wonder, with the backup options being George Odom, a special teamer, Malik Mustafa, a rookie, if the Niners are going to make a move here. And if they do, would they go the route of Andre Cisco? Overall Pro Football Focus grade last year of 68.9, run defense grade of 66.1. So he's a pretty well-rounded player. Not really a big pass rusher. The grade there 56.7, but in coverage, that's what I care about. He passed the test, 71.5, only allowed a passer rating when targeted of 83.9, and he has a knack for making plays on the football, 4 picks, and I think that he could be had for a somewhat affordable price. The Athletic on Cisco here, the Jags already had the big ones out of the way with Trevor Lawrence, linebacker Josh Allen, so Cisco is the one to watch. He's just 24 years old. He's an ascending player who could be on the verge of a true breakout year in his contract year. Now, after a rough offseason for the safety market, there's added intrigue with how teams will choose to pay their safeties, which adds mystery to Cisco's situation. To the offensive line here, once again, Chiefs guard Trey Smith. Really solid player for Kansas City. And following that Super Bowl defeat to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Chiefs really took an emphasis to protecting Patrick Mahomes because the Buccaneers that year set the record for the most quarterback hits and pressures on a quarterback in Super Bowl history, and Trey Smith has been a part of that offensive line, becoming a really good unit to protect Mahomes. In 2023, really good player. Overall Pro Football Focus grade of 72.2, pass blocking grade of 65.7, run blocking grade of 74 flat. He did give up 34 pressures, 5 hits, 2 sacks allowed, 8 penalties. Played all of his snaps at right guard, which is a little bit of a question mark for San Francisco, 1,085 snaps there. Along the offensive line for the Niners, I am high on Dominic Puni, the third-round pick out of Kansas, and I'm a fan of his, but keep in mind that as you look into the future, Aaron Banks will be a 2025 free agent. So was the Niners' plan to draft Puni to be his future replacement, to fill in at right guard? We'll see what happens during training camp. The Athletic on Smith. The Chiefs have one of the best trios of the interior offensive line in the league with Creed Humphrey, left guard Joe Thuney, and then Smith. But this upcoming season could be their final season together. Smith entering the last year of his rookie deal. The Chiefs, understandably, could prioritize retaining Humphrey and linebacker Nick Bolton over Smith, similar to the team re-signing pass rusher Chris Jones over cornerback L'Jarius Sneed. If Smith excels this year with consistent production while limiting his penalties, he could be the top free agent at his position next year, potentially earning an average annual value of more than $20 million. By this point, we kind of know what the Niners team building strategy is, right? They don't like to pay big money along the offensive line. They prioritize giving and handing out checks to players who score touchdowns. I get it. I just think this Niners team could be so much more dangerous with a better offensive line. Sticking with the offensive line, what if the Niners wanted to get a right tackle now who could take over for Trent Williams in the future? We've talked about Tristan Wirfs on this show as a dream candidate for me. Chargers offensive tackle Rashawn Slater, also a really good player. Last year, Pro Football Focus grade of 76.6, just a tremendous elite pass blocking grade of 84.7. What I don't understand is how he grades out poorly as a run blocker, only a 59.5 grade there. I think that he could get better in that regard, and in Kyle Shanahan's offense, you want to see a player be better in that area. Committed 8 penalties, only gave up 3 sacks, though 7 hits, 38 pressures. All of his snaps at left tackle, but he can play both. The Athletic on Slater here as the Chargers enter a scenario in which they have to make a decision on this front because Slater became eligible for an extension at the end of last year. The Chargers picked up his 5th-year option in May, meaning he's under contract for 2025. He's an elite tackle. The price for that position only going up. Lions tackle Penei Sewell, drafted 6 spots ahead of Slater in the first round, signed for $28 million in average annual value earlier this offseason. The smart approach is always signing good players early. Will the Chargers wait to see Slater play in the new offense under Jim Harbaugh before committing long-term? Of note, we know that Jim Harbaugh values the offensive line. I love what he said this offseason. He said football teams and the success of them are more dependent on the offensive line having cohesion and playing well than any other unit because all 5 members of the offensive line really have to bring it and have that communication and play solidly, snap in, snap out, because if they have a communication breakdown, a play gets blown up. Now, the Niners have to start planning for the post-Trent Williams era unless Trent Williams says, I feel good, I want to play for X amount of future years, and then the Niners can maybe work out a restructured deal with him, an extension. Either way, Niners have to get better on the trenches and in the trenches. Lastly, let's talk about Cardinals safety Budda Baker. For the same reasons that I said the Niners could target a safety for Andre Cisco, they could do the same thing with Budda Baker, who's on an expiring deal. Budda Baker is a Swiss Army knife. He can play all around the field, a multi-time Pro Bowler and All-Pro, a really special, versatile player who makes big-time plays down in, down out. Here's what The Athletic had to say about Budda Baker. A lot of people familiar with him inside the NFC West. There's no mistaking the heart and soul of the Cardinals. It's Budda Baker. He's been an organizational fixture since he was drafted in 2017, a 6-time Pro Bowler. When healthy, he's still among the best at his position, a force on the field, respected voice in the locker room, and he's only 28. With Baker becoming an unrestricted free agent at the end of 2024, his status in the desert will become a key storyline. Baker, with the base salary of $14.2 million, said during OTAs he wants to be a Cardinal, but understands it's a business. So he understands it's a business. That means that he's open for business as far as going to another team. So some trade candidates there for San Francisco. Which player should the Niners trade for on that list? Let me know down in the comment section right now. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit that sub button.